Arjikar rape murder accused guilty, sentencing tomorrow. Centre invites farmers for talks. Dalliwal accepts medical aid. Moving to end an impasse over farmers' protest. The centers Saturday invited farmers for talks next month to discuss their demands. Their leader Jagjit Singh Dalliwal, who had been on fast unto death since November 26 last year, accepted the medical aid around midnight. The breakthrough came after a delegation of officials from the Union Agricultural Ministry, led by a Joint Secretary Priya Ranjan, met Daliwal and had held a meeting with the representatives of Samyukt Kisan Morcha. Saif case, another suspect held in this time in Chhattisgarh, but question mark on role. I have three daughters, can understand the pain, says convict's mother. I am grateful to court, only I know what I have lost, says victim's father. In a calibrated move, RBI loosens grip, let rupee depreciate against US dollar. In calibrated move, the RBI loosens grip, lets rupee depreciate against US dollar, falling forex reserves, and rupee has declined against US dollar from 83.52 to 86.62. From September 23, 24 to January 17, 25. Since December 10, rupee has depreciated 2.12% against US dollar to touch 86.62. In what appears to be a shift in the strategy, RBI has seemingly relaxed its control over the rupee, allowing it to depreciate against the dollar over the past month. The apparent change in stance marks a departure from RBI's previous defense mechanisms, which were more rigid. In fact, it had timely managed the rupee's movement to prevent sharp depreciation since September 24 till about a month ago. The rupee, which was moving in a range of 84 to 85 quite some time, logged its steepest single-day fall in nearly 2 months. In Coco, a 20-year-old's journey from collecting scrap to stacking medals, in 2 years and ended the January 13 session 66 paise down at the historic low of 86.70 against US dollar. Since November 1, 2024, the rupee has depreciated by 2.6%. The RBI's new approach is a prudent one. If you bind the rupee to a very tight range, you also end up spending a lot of energy and resources. I think by letting the rupee go a wider range seems to be a good idea. However, market experts believe it's too early to attribute this change to the RBI governor Sanjay Malhotra, who took charge on December 11. The RBI as an institution was aligned with former governor Shaktikanta Das' view on currency management. Suddenly changing the strategy isn't easy. The rupee's fall in the last a few weeks has led to the conclusion in the market that rupee tried something and they probably RBI tried something and they probably had anticipated that holding beyond a point makes no sense. I would say there is a change in RBI strategy for sure, but I wouldn't give it to the new governor. The depreciation came at a time when Malhotra had been involved in a series of meetings with officials to get a grip of the functioning of central bank. Rupee traders have been keen to assess the new RBI governor's view on currency since he assumed office last month. Recent rupee action points to a higher tolerance for a weaker exchange rate, demonstrated in a minus 2.1% fall in the rupee versus dollar in quarter 4 of for financial year 24 compared to nearly flat quarter 1 to quarter 3. The weakening bias continues into the new year with overvaluation of the broad real effective exchange rate also weighing on exchange rate. We had a situation where RBI was fully supporting the rupee. However, in the last 1 month, it has reduced which has led to rupee depreciation, said an analyst from the leading securities firm. Since the dollar index has strengthened significantly, the RBI may have thought that some amount of rupee depreciation to align with the dollar strength may not be bad. So they allowed the rupee to depreciate to the levels closer to 86.5 in the recent period. Jump in forward dollar sales, fall in forex kitty. The RBI has made dollar sales of $49.18 billion in the forward market and $9.27 billion in the spot market as of October 24. When compared to this, the RBI made spot purchases of $13.24 billion and forward sales of $541 million in April 24. The RBI sells dollars when the dollar strengthens and the rupee declines and vice versa. It uses foreign exchange kitty to manage the rupee movement. Dollar sales in the forward market, which won't impact forex reserves, could have gone up further in November and December. The RBI did not respond to the mail from Indian Express about its intervention in the currency market and the impact of rupee depreciation. India's foreign exchange reserves plummeted by $79 billion since September 24 to 625.87 billion dollars as of January 10. This decline was mainly attributed to dollar sales to prevent the rupee fall and capital outflows, mainly with withdrawals of over 1,43,000 crore by foreign investors since October 24. Had the RBI not sold forward dollars, forex kitty would have fallen by another 50 to 75 billion. The rupee is the only currency which has not depreciated much while all other currencies have depreciated against the dollar. Strong intervention present since quarter 4 of financial year 24 has led to a drain in domestic liquidity, pushing the balance to a deficit, accentuated by seasonal drivers, notwithstanding the 50 basis point cut in cash reserve ratio to as well as bond purchases by the RBI. This position had also become unsustainable as a rapid appreciation in the dollar magnified the misalignment, increasing the need to ease grip on the rupee. The liquidity in the system is in deficit. When the RBI intervenes in the market, it sells dollars and buys rupee. If the RBI is buying rupee, it takes more rupee out of the system, resulting in a liquidity deficit. The liquidity deficit is hampering monetary markets, which means the cost of money becomes expensive even when interest rates are going higher. The RBI would not be desirous of that. While the projection for inflation for quarter 4 is 4.5%, the present depreciation of the rupee will be an additional concern as this can lead to higher imported inflation, especially on oil products. The future course of rupee depends upon whether the dollar remains here or goes higher on its scales back or it scales back. The event which is going to be looked at closely is Donald Trump taking over as US president and how he delivers on the election promises he has made in terms of immigration, tax, and tariffs. There's an expectation that currency can fall to 87 against the US dollar in March this year, assuming the nature of announcement is as strong as the Trump had promised. The dollar will strengthen significantly. However, expectation is that the action is going to be slightly muted compared to what he had promised. If that would be the situation, the dollar may remain strong and may not go significantly higher from here immediately. Butcher of Delhi arrested after he jumped parole over a year ago. 57-year-old Chandrakant Jha walked into Old Delhi railway station on Friday evening. He must have believed he was past about to leave his past behind forever. For Jha, once infamously known as one of the India's most brutal serial killers, escaping to his roots in Bihar felt like a logical move. However, the police waited for him at the station, bringing his year-long fight to an end. Body parts in rice sacks, switched off phones, blurred CCTV images. Blind murder case in East Delhi solved. Rahul to lead walks as Congress seeks to regain lost ground. AAP documentary screening cancelled. Kejriwal slams BJP over dictatorship. To be developed as model villages, the deserted Mohalla clinic at Nizampur, land handed over to the government by Gram Sabha in the 1970s to build a hospital at Jaunti. AAP claims Kejriwal's attack. AAP claims Kejriwal vehicle attack car hit our workers, says BJP. Don't want empty promises adopted by LG. 3 Northeast Delhi villages await health infrastructure. Kejriwal new polls guarantee free electricity and water for cities' tenants. Jaishankar flags challenge from China weaponization of market instruments. Slams Pak on cross-border terror, says cancer consuming our own body politic. Barely days after the Donald Trump taking over the barely days ahead of Donald Trump taking over as US president, amid growing concerns over the imposition of tariffs or crackdown in immigration, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar outlined the global challenges due to weaponization of market instruments and financial institutions. At the same time, he underlined the link between economic growth and strategic autonomy. He also framed the China challenge, saying that India China relationship is trying to disentangle itself from the complications arising from the post 2020 border situation. Even as that is better at being addressed, more thought needs to be given to a longer term evolution of ties. Delivering the 19th Nani A Palkhiwala Memorial Lecture in Mumbai, Jaishankar said the relevance of this new India to global politics arises not just from its growing abilities but also the circumstances of its rise. The relevance of this new India in global politics arises not just from its growing abilities but also the circumstances of its rise, particularly in light of COVID experiences. There is today a much sharp awareness of the risk to the international economy of over concentration, be in manufacturing or in emerging technologies. The growing weaponization of economic capabilities, including market share, has become a major source of anxiety. The digital era has brought forth its own set of challenges focused on trust and transparency. Individuals and societies can no longer be agnostic about where their data resides and how and by whom it is harnessed. Jaishankar will attend the inauguration of US President and will also meet his counterpart, US Secretary of State nominee Marco Rubio, on the sidelines along with Quad foreign ministers. The challenge for India is to undertake its rise in such unpredictable circumstances. To do that, it has to accelerate both its internal growth and modernization, as well as de risk its external exposure. At home, that is best done through political stability, broad based growth, and inclusive growth and continuing reforms. It means more focus on manufacturing as well as food and health security while building the deep strengths that would make us competitive. Strategic autonomy, after all, is acquiring greater economic connotations. Framing the challenge from China, Jaishankar said, at a time when most of its relationships are moving forward, India confronts a particular challenge in establishing an equilibrium with China. Much of that arises from the fact that both nations are on rise as immediate neighbors and the only two societies with over a billion people. Their dynamic could never have been easy, but it has been further sharpened by the boundary dispute, by the baggage of history, and by differing socio-political systems. Misreadings by the past policymakers, whether driven by idealism or absence of real politic, has actually helped neither cooperation nor competition with China. That has clearly changed in the last decade. Right now, the relationship is trying to disentangle itself from these complications arising out of post 2020 border situation. Even as that is being addressed, a more thought is given to the long term evolution of ties. Clearly, India has to prepare for expressions of China's growing capabilities, particularly those that impinge directly on our interest to uphold its own end. A more rapid development of India's comprehensive national power is necessary. This is not just about correcting the earlier neglect of border infrastructure and oceanic periphery, but also in mitigating dependence in sensitive domains. There could be naturally be practical cooperation undertaken with due diligence. All in all, India's approach can be summed up in terms of three mutuals: mutual respect, mutual sensitivity, and mutual interest. Mutual respect, mutual sensitivity, and mutual interest. What is at stake is actually the larger prospects of both nations, and in fact even of global order. It needs an acceptance that emergence of a multipolar Asia is an essential prerequisite for a multipolar world, underlining that some key relationships such as with US, China, Pakistan or Israel have actually been approached with far great realism. This is a result of shifts in our country, in our society, in its politics, economics and security thinking. Particularly with respect to US, India was able to overcome what Prime Minister Modi has described as hesitations of history. Once India abandoned the earlier mindset, the benefits of deeper cooperations have become apparent. They are there for all of you to see. It is unfolding in domains like security, cyberspace, emerging technologies, to digital science education, trade and business. Acknowledging that changes in US policy and posture will have implications for India, Jaishankar said that because the complementarity is already strong and visible, indicators point to robust growth in our cooperation in the days ahead. Hitting out at Pakistan for its support to cross border terrorism, he said that cancer is now consuming its own body politic. Pakistan is an exception in our neighborhood in view of support to cross border terrorism, that cancer is now consuming its own body politic. The entire subcontinent has shared interest in Pakistan abjuring that approach. On India Russia ties, Jaishankar said, despite the ups and downs, Russia has been salient to India's policy since 1945. This is actually one relationship that has largely held steady. Currently, as Russia is redirecting its attention towards Asia, there is a further logic that is emerging. Deeper economic cooperation between India and Russia has a stabilizing consequence for the global economy through potential collaborations. India's expanding footprint will meet Russia's influence in many regions. The National Solar Energy Federation of India, an umbrella organization of companies associated with renewable energy, has written to Rajasthan CM Bhajanlal Sharma seeking his urgent intervention in Barmer, claiming that projects worth 8,500 crore are stalled due to independent MLA from Shio Rabin Singh Bhati. A month after allocation of portfolios, Maharashtra governor on Saturday announced that names of guardian ministers for all 36 districts, with CM Devendra Fadnavis taking charge of Maoist affected Gadchiroli district, will break 50% quota ceiling. Every caste must get its share, says Rahul. After Howdy Modi, Indian Idol Tasha Group to drum it up at Trump inaugural. Maharashtra's sole Gondi medium school faces closure. Education department says the school started by village council is unauthorized since it lacks approval. Under trial who shot at cops killed in gun battle, police. UP CM to hold cabinet meeting in Prayagraj at 2020, January 22. Rajnath at Mahakumbh. Over 2 months after angioplasty left two PMJY beneficiaries dead, Gujarat hospital chairman arrested. NMC eases norms to appoint teachers in medical colleges. Women at Sonipat home reunited with Vardha family after 15 years. PM property cards under Swamitva will unlock economic activity worth 100 lakh crore. Terming the property cards distributed under Centre's Swamitva scheme a guarantee of economic security, Prime Minister Narendra Modi Saturday said These documents, once issued in all villages of the country, will unlock economic activity worth 100 lakh crore. The Prime Minister was addressing an event to distribute over 65 lakh property cards to property owners in over 50,000 villages across 230 districts through video conferencing. Calling it a historic day for villages and the rural areas of India, he said nearly half of the country's more than 6 lakh villages had been surveyed by drones under the Property Survey Program, which was launched in 2020. He said 2.25 crore people in villages have so far received legal documents for their houses under the scheme. After getting legal documents, lakhs of people have been taken loan from banks on the basis of their houses and property. With this money, they have started their small businesses in village. Many of these small and medium farmer families, for them, these property cards have become a big guarantee of economic security. Our Dalit, backward, and tribal families were the most troubled and affected by illegal occupation and long disputes in the court. Now, with availability of legal proof, they are getting relief from this crisis. It is estimated that property cards are made in all villages. The way will open for economic activity of more than 100 lakh crore. You can imagine how much capital is going to be added to the country's economy. The beneficiaries who received property cards on Saturday came from 10 states and 2 UTs. In his speech, Prime Minister called UN study, emphasizing that reducing poverty requires people to have property rights, citing a book by a renowned economist on the challenge of property rights. He said that small amount of property owned by villagers is often dead capital. This means that property cannot be used by transaction, and it does not help in case of increase of families' income, the PM said, underlining that India was not immune to global challenge of property rights. The Prime Minister said despite having property worth millions of crores, villagers in India often lacked legal documents, leading to disputes and even illegal occupation by powerful individuals. Attacking the previous governments, Prime Minister said did not take concrete steps to address the issue, calling Swamitva and Bhu Aadhar a unique land parcel for calling Swamitva Bhu Aadhar and a unique land parcel identification number for each land as foundational systems for village development. PM said 23 Bhu Aadhar numbers have been issued so far. Over the past 7 to 8 years, approximately 98% of land records have been digitized and most land maps are now digitally available. He said, according to an official statement, drone survey has been completed in over 3.17 lakh villages, which covers 92% of the targeted villages. The scheme has reached full saturation in Pondicherry, Andaman Nicobar, Tripura, Goa, Uttarakhand, and Haryana. Drone surveys have been completed in Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and several UTs. BJP's ideology is consistent. Other parties are like pendulums. Nadda pill dispensers to biometric engines. Kashmiri students race ahead in Atal Innovation Mission. Tussle over Kalaripattu's removal from competition list. Maharashtra government to trace ineligible women who availed Ladki Bahin benefits. NCP says at least 65 lakh beneficiaries will become ineligible once of stir. NRN, NR Narayan Murthy and SN Subramaniam, they have earned their place in the world, and during their long and distinguished careers, they have cultivated the quality of speaking their minds. People listen to NRN and SNS and react some aggressively. Different worldview. Both Narayan Murthy and Subramaniam did not inherit wealth, nor are they employees or industrial workers who draw a salary of wage. They are qualified professionals and have grown from engineers to first generation entrepreneurs As such, they have a share in profits of their enterprises. Their worldview is different from the view of inheritors and employers. Consequently, their view of work life balance is also different. For inheritors who do not have to work their way up from the bottom, they know, and everybody else in the business know, that inheritors will reach the top one day. I am afraid most inheritors, except about a dozen old families, did not create value of wealth. Some unfortunately destroyed value and wealth. Just compare the list of top 10 business houses in India before 91 and today. Most first generation entrepreneurs have created wealth. As far as workers and employees are concerned, most of them are content to receive wages or salaries and periodic revisions therein. They have neither the skills nor the ambition to grow beyond their present status. I have noticed by and large it is the inheritors and employees who criticized NRN and SNS on their remarks on how many hours one should work in a week. NRN advocated 70 hours of work in a week. SNS allegedly said 90 hours a week. I believe what they said was not outrageous from their point of view. Narayan Murthy said India's work productivity is one of the lowest in the world. Therefore, my request is that our youngsters must say, "This is my country, I want to work 70 hours a week." When those remarks sparked tense debate, he refused to back down. Subramaniam, in an undated video, said, "I regret that I am not able to make you work on Sundays. To be honest, I will be more happy to make you work on Sundays. I work on Sundays." The 8-hour day for industrial workers became law in Germany in 1918. Since then, 8 hours labor, 8 hours recreation, 8 hours rest has become a universal norm. There is a nice ring to 888, although I know of no one who spent 8 hours a day on recreation. I suppose recreation includes eating, washing, exercise, playing sports, watching movies, etc. If you look at that, 8 hours doesn't seem enough for recreation. Most industrial workers do repetitive tasks. You learn new skills and graduate to more complex tasks. When desk jobs become prevalent, employers copied the 888 norm. Most desk employers also do repetitive tasks. Hence, I agree that for the vast majority of workers or employers, it makes sense to adopt the 888 norm. With the advent of autonomous robotics and AI, the norm may change to fewer hours of work. They need not work longer hours, but they need the tools, technology, and systems to become productive. I think NRN's and SNS remarks were not aimed at such workers and employees. On the contrary, farmers, especially self employed farmers, do not follow the 888 norm. Discover for oneself. I enjoy working long hours a day, but my definition of work include practicing law, parliamentary work, reading, writing, speaking, listening to public, talking to party workers, and attending select social functions. I consider every hour when I am not sleeping as working hour. Work-life balance is something that each individual has to discover for himself or herself, and I am happy that I have discovered mine. Having achieved enormous success and reached the top, I think Narayan Murthy and Subramaniam are qualified to speak about longer hours of work for Indians. I don't think it has anything to do with financial rewards, as insinuated by some trolls and memes. I know many men and women who are unaffected by large incomes or great wealth. They lead a Spartan life, eat simple food, do not drink, dress neatly but not flashily, and are unassumingly kind. I believe Narayan Murthy and SNS were exhorting the aspirational young generations to imbibe the lesson that it is not long hours of productive work that will make a developing country truly rich and improve the lives of millions of Indian people. In my view, there was nothing controversial about the remarks made by Narayan Murthy and Subramaniam. If anything, their words may have had the unintended effect of provoking people to think. It is not about how you raise your boy. There is a very presumption loaded onto the proposal how to raise a boy. The presumption is somewhat deterministic and leans towards a normative view of the world. Sounds wonderful, but does not work one bit on the ground. You might as well wish to stretch out a hand and pluck a star from space tuck it in your basement to secure free electricity for life. The only thing guaranteed is a single arm. My son has evolved through various phases in his life in 19 years. Simply stated, it's been phases of the moon, bright and full, gibbous, semi bright, crescent bright, and fully dark. If I were to map my parenting scores on the graph of challenging luminosity aforementioned, one graph would have zero correlationship with the other. The importance of relationship between father and son has the stamp of both history and epics, whether it is Dashrath and Ram or Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan or even Odysseus and Telemachus, much have been made about continuity and transference, the family being the primary structure of social organization and primogeniture being the realm among royalty and such like. It is not difficult to understand why this should be so. In modern societies like Max Weberian notion of work as worship and the visceral compulsion to have one's progeny, especially boys, propelled ahead, making parenting a stressful endeavor. To Despite the burden of history on one hand and modern obsession of ensuring successful outcomes for your boy on the other, I choose to be little chill about how to raise my boy. To begin with, my boy learned only so much at home. He learned loads from his peers, from the internet, from his gaming friends, and from the gaggle of kids who assembled in the colony park without any specific agenda or purpose. What I focused was on trying to make him feel secure. So here's a derivative that begins with love and maps out stages that are involved with security and conceptual fulcrum that holds a formula together. This is what I believed. Give give my little boy enough love and time, which my profession allowed in abundance. Being loved makes a child feel secure. Security gives him confidence. Confidence produces effort. From effort comes outcomes, and from outcomes one get commonly known as success. So the life goals of bringing my son was not so stressful. Love him enough and give him time, and the rest will sort out. The real challenge was not about how would he get to where he was meant to get as an adult. How would he go about doing the things I hoped he would? More importantly, what are the things I hoped he would not do? Early on, we had a more successfully applied rule for my son than how he was applied later when my daughter was born. That a no meant no and a yes meant a yes. Simple formula perhaps, but it underscored true principles. He had to learn to deal with disappointment and the fact that there were things he could not get. Secondly, it if he indeed promised something, he more or less was assured it would be honored. As confessed earlier, there really is nothing earth shattering in what I practiced in raising a boy. Knowing that I did not call the shots beyond a point was perhaps the biggest learning for me and perhaps a blessing for him. At 19 and adequately sensitive and balanced, and in college doing fairly well, I guess he did okay. Ergo, so did we as parents, I guess. The challenge was to be certain kind of father rather than act as a particular type of parent. It's who you are as a parent rather than how you bring up your son is important. Mostly, children have to be left to be and allowed somewhat to raise you as a parent as well. Defending democracy, believe me when I tell you that I write today with trepidation and my hands tremble as I type. This is because of relentless, brutal trolling by fans and followers of the Congress ruling family. Congress trolls are not as malevolent as BJP trolls and just get as personal. So, I have been told by many that it is time to retire because I am old and senile, and by others that my sole motivation is my hatred of the Gandhi family. Let me clarify here I have no shame in admitting that I am old, which I would have to be since this column is now nearly 40 years old. But senile, I am not, and my political opinions are never based on hatred. No political column would based based on hatred would survive this long, but politicians are thin skinned and their sycophants became thinner skinned to please him. What provoked the virulent tirade against me was a comment on X in which I said that Rahul Gandhi had taken political immaturity to new heights by saying that his fight was against the Indian state. An excellent editorial in this newspaper explained gently last Friday that for Rahul to equate his fight against the BJP government with Indian state was to conflate the government to the same level as Indian state. In the same tweet, I also said that the BJP had thrown Rahul a lifeline of blaming George Soros for his rash comment after a takeover of all our institutions by the RSS. My own advice is that if he finds that he find a grown up to explain to him that repeatedly saying that institutions of democracy are totally diminished amounts to an insult to India, and he makes it hard for us to understand why he wants to be the leader of opposition in such a shabby democracy. If the leader of opposition spent the time mulling over his words before unleashing them upon the world, he would have noticed that nobody has been as good as demeaning our democracy institutions than his own family. Does he remember that his mother weakened the office of Prime Minister by personally appointing men of her choice? Does he remember that Mummy's National Advisory Council became far more powerful than cabinet of Dr. Manmohan Singh? Or that he himself publicly tore an ordinance passed by the government and declared that it was nonsense? And there is more. As someone who got my first job in an Indian newspaper a month before Rahul's granny declared the emergency. I remember press censorship well. Like the newspaper, the one I worked in that time was determined to defy Indira Gandhi's rule. So there was endless trips to Press Information Bureau to get clearance for apolitical stories. It was not just the media that diminished as an institution. The whole of government was because it was clear very soon that Mrs. Gandhi's younger son was more powerful than any of her ministers. My point is not to say that under Narendra Modi, India has suddenly become a place of liberal ideas and strong institutions, and only that the template he has used to diminish democracy is the one was created long ago. If today it is RSS, men, and Hindutva type who can be found in our universities, courts, and in bureaucracy, this is perhaps because this template was created long ago. The difference is only of ideology. So we now have historians who do not hesitate to write in school textbooks that Islamic invaders came here and destroyed magnificent temples and ancient history universities. Historians of secular times chose to disguise these events for reasons of secularism. It was stupid to do this then, and it is stupid now for Hindu historians to go too far to the other extreme. It is hard to understand why they need to do this at all. The millions of devout Hindus heading to Mahakumbh these days is a proof who sought to spread Islam in India succeeded only partially. But I digress and do not wish to. The one point I want to make is this week is that Rahul Gandhi really needs to speak with more maturity about things as way as democracy and its institutions. There are those who believe that it is a miracle that India has remained democracy, while countries on all sides of have succumbed to martial law and totalitarian tyrants. Personally, I think that the roots of democracy have become stronger with every single year of our journey as a modern independent nation. Indian voters have fully understood the power of votes, and when they see a political leader showing signs of megalomania or entitlement, they use their votes to remind him who the real boss is. So someone as when someone is significant as a leader of opposition tells them that institutions that hold up democracy in their country have been destroyed, he insults their intelligence and their faith. Gaza ceasefire deal takes effect today. Exchange of captive to mark the first step. TikTok goes dark in US as deadline of government bad loans. Two judges linked to a 1988 mass execution shot dead in Tehran. Hasina says death of was minutes away as she fled Bangladesh. Russia fires barrage of drones at Ukraine after attack on industrial sites. Minister of Everything for Trudeau in rise to replace him. Chrystia Freeland, Canada's former Deputy Prime Minister, whose sudden resignation in December helped set the stage for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's decision to step down. She posted her announcement on social media, six-word sentence, I am running to fight for Canada. People started getting sick, some started dying, South African miner recalls horror. Outward foreign direct investment rises by 17% to $37.68 billion in 2024. US eases curbs on nuclear entities, but will incoming Trump administration take a cue? In a sign that Indian companies are keen on expanding their global footprints outward, foreign direct investment by near domestic firms has seen a jump of nearly 17% to 37.68 billion in 2024. In 23, the overseas direct investment stood at 32.79 $32 billion dollars as per the RBI data. This is a positive sign that Indian companies are also going global. They are not just eyeing domestic investment but also looking at other territories. In a way, they are diversifying their growth models. Overseas direct investment means acquisition of any unlisted equity capital or subscription as part of memorandum of understanding or association of a foreign entity or investment in a 10% or a more of a paid up equity capital of a listed foreign equity or investment with control where investment is less than 10% of the paid up equity capital of a listed foreign country. ODFI has three components: equity, loans, and guarantee issued in a last calendar year. Overseas FDI by local countries is in the form of equity stood at $12.69 billion, a rise of 40%. Under the loan category, OFDI by foreign Indian companies was $8.7 billion in 2024, $4.76 billion in the previous calendar year. The sectors where Indian companies invest in overseas markets includes hotels, construction, manufacturing, agriculture, and mining and services. The countries that have seen total financial overstate commitment by way of ODI are Singapore, US, UAE, UK, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Malaysia. The fact that Indian companies are investing their own subsidiaries indicates that they are expanding outside. They also show that local companies that have joint ventures are collaborating more with companies in overseas territories. Overseas investments in joint ventures and wholly owned subsidiaries have been recognized as important avenues for promoting global businesses for Indian entrepreneurs. Joint ventures are perceived as a medium of economic cooperation between India and other countries, transfer of technology and skills, sharing of results in research and development, access to wider global market, promotion of brand image, generation of employment, and utilization of raw materials available in land and in the host country are other significant benefits. US eases curbs on nuclear entities, but will incoming Trump administration take a cue? US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan may have signaled an incremental step by the outgoing Biden administration to operationalize the Indo-US nuclear deal, including measures to find a way around the long-standing regulations that have stymied the nuclear civil cooperation between India nuclear entities and US companies. Indications are that while the last-ditch outreach by Washington could include removing Indian government-owned atomic bodies from the US entry list, the biggest impediment holding up investment are the legal barriers on both sides. On American side, it is 10 CFR 810 authorization part 810 of Title 10 of Code of Federal Regulations of the US Atomic Energy Act, which gives US nuclear vendors the ability to export equipment to countries such as India under strict safeguards, but does not permit them to manufacture any nuclear equipment or perform any nuclear design work here. And on the Indian side, it is the Civil Liability of Nuclear Damage Act 2010. On trade and economy, the points of convergence are India's business interest and Trumponomics are beginning to get clearer. What is fuzzy though, from New Delhi's perspective, is whether India would get some leeway on this sort of waiver it seeks with respect to 810 authorization, given the president elect Donald Trump is essentially transactional in most of his outreach efforts and wants manufacturing jobs to come back to India to come back to America. The 810 authorization is a clear impediment from New Delhi's perspective given that India wants to participate in manufacturing value chain and co-produce the nuclear components for atomic power projects being jointly planned to be set up in the country, sources said. But Trump has also stated in the past that while he is bullish on nuclear power, he is concerned about atomic power projects overshooting their budgets, and that is a problem that nuclear projects in US and Europe are steadily coming to terms with. Spreading out manufacturing does offer a possible answer to tackling a high cost problem plaguing American vendors. While there is uncertainty on how all of this will pan out post January 20, what is clear with the incoming Trump administration is that one of the area of mutual interest is likely to be small modular reactors. This is something that New Delhi is increasingly viewing as an area of strategic interest, and Trump appears to be extremely keen to push. During his pre-election product podcast with Joe Rogan, Trump said he thought projects to build more of a larger nuclear reactors currently on the grid, while very clean have a tendency to be complex to go over budget. They build themselves massive things, then environmentalists get in, Trump said, and then pointed out to small modular reactors as a potential answer to long running cost concerns surrounding the energy source. Trump asserted that he believes that smaller reactors, which can be built in a factory, could avoid the complexities associated with large reactors. The IAEA, international body that advises government on transitions to clean energy, says nuclear power has to be more than double by 2050 if the world has any chance of reaching net zero. The problem with nuclear power currently is that it is big and expensive, takes too long to build, and could cause civilizational ending disasters if something goes wrong. SMRs promise a workaround on practically more of these concerns. This comes at a time when Indian working to get into manufacturing value chain of small reactors, both as a fulfilling its commitment to clean energy and bundling SMRs at technology level foreign policy pitch. Small modular reactors with a capacity to 30 megawatt electricity to 300 megawatt electricity per unit are increasingly seen as important for nuclear energy to remain a commercially competitive option in the future. This is especially relevant in the wake of surging power demand from technology companies, given the massive incremental electricity requirement coming in from AI machine learning applications and data centers. While there are lots of different types of SMRs being developed, there are currently four main types, each using a different coolant to manage the extreme heat of nuclear fission reaction: light, water, high temperature gas, liquid, metal, and molten salt. The most common type, though, are light water reactors, which are very similar to traditional nuclear power plants being built in Russia, France, and US, which are almost all water cooled. That makes them much easier to design and get approved. And today's nuclear regulations are mostly based on water cooled reactors. So, with these light water reactors, the idea is to take a big traditional nuclear power plant, shrink it down, and mass produce in a factory. Like Trump described it in Rogan's podcast, India's Department of Atomic Energy is exploratory talks with Holtex International, based in Camden, New Jersey, a smaller privately held company that is now built as one of the world's largest exporter of capital nuclear components, for possible collaborations. Holtec's pitch is fostering a public-private initiative centered on American company flagships small modular reactor SMR 300 to potentially help break the status in the nuclear engagement between two countries. Nearly 2 decades after India-US nuclear deal, the idea is to explore the possibility of using existing existing coal plant sites in India to deploy Holtec's proposed SMR-based projects and the possibility of joint manufacturing. As of now, two SMR projects have reached operational stage globally. One is in Russia, and the other is in China. Was grid connected in 2021. Holtec's SMR 300 is one of the 7 advanced reactor designs supported by US Department of Energy Advanced Reactor Demonstration Program. In 2020, the company's SMR project received $116 million award to accelerate design. On the Indian side, Level's Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act 2010, which sought to create a mechanism for compensating victims for damage caused by nuclear accident and allocating liability and specifying procedures for compensation, has been cited as an impediment by foreign players such as GE, Hitachi, Westinghouse, and French nuclear company Areva to investing in India. This is primarily on the grounds that legislation challenges operators' liability to equipment suppliers with foreign vendors, citing this as a reason for worries about investing in India's nuclear sector due to fears of incurring future liability. On the American side, the 10 CFR 810 authorization Code of Federal Regulations and US Atomic Energy gives American companies such as Holtec the ability to export to India under strict safeguards but does not permit them to manufacture any nuclear equipment. Gadkari's size of auto industry is 222 lakh crore, created 4.45 crore jobs. 4.5 crore jobs. EPFO members can self-correct personal details without employees' intervention. For Team India, glass is half full. Selectors hope Jasprit Bumrah gets fit and banking on tried and tested Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli to fire. Tongue of Fire. Jeet Thail's latest poetry collection explores the perennial search of hope in broken societies. How to arrive at peace in negotiating India's landmark agreements. Former diplomat Avtar Singh Bhasin critically analyzes and assesses India's landmark treaties. Negotiating India's landmark treaties, he has critically analyzed Five Pacts Indo-China Agreement on Tibet 1954, Indo-Soviet Treaty of Peace, Friendship and Cooperation 1971, and Shimla Agreement 1972, the India-Sri Lanka Accord 1987, and India-USA United States Civil Nuclear Energy Agreement 2008. At the summit, Indira Gandhi suggested that existing ceasefire line provided the best solution to the Kashmir problem, Bhutto agreed but said that this could not go in the agreement since he would be thrown out of by the people. The path that history takes. So see you in the next one.